Okay, welcome everyone to the Pro Trade Room Plus and the FOMC statement. My name is Lee Goldstein, the trading director for 10-Minute Trades. Please remember that all the trades we discuss are for educational purposes. I am not a financial advisor. It is possible to lose money trading futures. Okay, welcome everyone to the Pro Trade Room. All right, let me get the sound on my laptop turned off. We are also streaming on YouTube today. So I want to welcome all our friends that are watching us on YouTube. And for all of our challenge friends, you'll see all of the ways that we use the tools that we've already talked about in our classes. So as you can see, we're streaming our charts. The first thing we usually do in our trade room is we look at our DMM. We take a look at our daily trade report to see what we've got going on and what we are planning if we think it's safe to take a trade. And it's a big if, because look what's been going on with the FOMC statement. What's been going on is that this particular event has not been working. It's got three
Keep in mind we're now
losing
half an hour
trades in
away
a
from the
row.
top of the hour, where we see the
Okay.
release of the US interest rate decision.
When an
We're meeting
event
expectations here
gets three
25 basis
losing
point up
trades in a
to for
row,
spot.
it almost always gets
The
a
rate
new
statement, of
look.
course, as well as
That does not
Fomc,
automatically
which
mean
comes with the
it'll have
FOMC's
a new
median rate
setup,
expectations
but it means
for
that
next
it
year, the
gets a
next 2
look.
years, 3 years, and the
And
longer
we
run
did
as
take a
well.
look, our testing department, and we did come up with another setup. And I have to say that it's very interesting, but of course it's got risk because we've never traded it live in the room. It's new, but there's always a first time for every setup. What you can do, especially because this is an unusual week, we're in a holiday week. The Fed is making an announcement. It's very much expected that they're going to cut the rate a quarter, 25 basis points. I don't think that anyone is really expecting out of the ordinary news on this event today, that it's probably safe to take our test trade. Keep in mind that this also, though, is an event where if you're trading in a cash account, brokers have raised or they are going to raise margins right before the event. So, in other words, if you don't have a lot of cash in your account and you wanted to trade 10 NQ contracts, you might not have enough money in your account to do it. So, it's extremely important to know what margin means. It's important to know if the brokers are going to raise the margins on a trade. And very simply, on the broker websites, they have lists or an explanation of what the margins might mean and what it might cost. This is, for instance, a list of margin. Intraday margin, it's the amount of money you have to have in your account to trade certain instruments. We're not going to get into what each person has to have in their account. That's something that you as a trader should really know, or you should not be taking a trade if you don't know how much money you need to have in your account. You should not take a trade, because if you're in a trade and the broker shuts down your trade, it could cause you to lose what might have been a winning trade. It could cause you extra expenses because the broker may charge you to shut down your trade. All sorts of things could happen if you are unaware of what's going on. And I can't stress that more. There's plenty of time to practice trading. Just because there's an event doesn't mean you have to trade it live, okay? That's the most important thing that I can tell people. Excuse me. But what's interesting is right now the ES, I'm looking at the ES here. ES is a little bit bullish. The ES, I believe, is maybe getting ready to test the high of the day. It may wait for the news, but there's definitely the possibility of a magnet trade for the ES or the MES. Okay. So you could put your chart, one of your charts on MES 0325. And I say MES only so you could take a trade without a lot of risk if you wanted to. And I'm actually going to set up just for fun. I'm going to set up a magnet trade on the MES. So on my right hand chart, I'm going to right click. I'm going to click strategies. I'm going to click the magnet trade. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to label it MES magnet trade. All right. And I'm even going to put it in one of my prop accounts. I'm trading it in a prop account. I'm willing to take a risk on it. And I'll put two positions on it. All right. And I'll choose a proximity of 10% and I'm going to set up the trade. Let me show you how I'm going to set up the trade. My proximity is 10%. It's the only thing you really have to know. How many positions? Choose the account that you're trading. I'm going to apply it and okay it. I'm going to make sure that my trading chart is on the same account. When I enable the magnet trade, it's going to put my fill. My fill is this heavy, thick line. That's a little bit further away than I want to be. If the ES gets above 46, I'll take a little magnet trade to get to 48, actually 47.50-ish. So I'll make like 6 ticks, 2 contracts, 7, 8 ticks, just to test my idea. And I'll put the magnet trade on automatic at the moment by pressing the magnet entry button. And now I have a magnet. If it goes to the high of the day, it'll fill me before it gets there. And if it tests the high of the day, I'll make a few dollars. If it changes direction on me, then I might lose a few dollars. The one thing I'll do is turn off the trade and double my stop because my stop was set up for full size instruments. So I'm going to use a 40 tick stop. All right. And I just happen to see the magnet. Maybe it's setting up right now. Maybe it's not. I can enable it. If I don't think it's setting up, I could just leave it the way it is. Do not put it on automatic. Right now, it's not on automatic unless I press the magnet button and put it on automatic. Okay. Now, if you remember, I did move my order a little bit closer. You know, if we get to this area, it's about 45-ish. I think if we get to this area, it's going to test that high. So let's see if we can have a trade there. Now, the main reason we're here, though, that's not on our DMM. Our DMM had 3 losing breakout trades in a row on the NQ. We reduced the bracket because we discovered our bracket has been way too big over the past 3 sessions. And we don't need an 80 tick stop either. Didn't need nearly as big a stop. So we reduced the stop. However, I would say at the moment, the breakout has high risk because 3 in a row have failed. So we're generally looking and waiting for the breakout to start to prove itself again and maybe have 1 or 2 Good trades, right? Get it? Do you get it? Do you understand the concept? I don't want to jump in. I'm certainly not going to trade it the way we traded it the last 3 months when it had three losers in a row. Three losers in a row is enough to say to me, let's find another possible trade. So Chantal and myself, Chantal is our other tester. We test together every week. We discovered that the ES has a trap trade that has looked pretty good for the better part of a year. A trap trade is a trade in which we think the market will reverse if we get into the trade. Okay? We create what we call a spike sheet. It goes back a year and it shows how much the market spiked on each FOMC event, each news release. Okay, let me help the person who can't see or hear. If someone can't see or hear, I don't know how we can help them. There's not much we can do. If someone would type in for him to log in and out, maybe he'll see that. Maybe with a different browser. Sometimes you just can't help. There's not much you can do. Anyway, we create a spike sheet, and that spike sheet shows us there's been a lot of decent reversals and there's been spikes. The biggest one in the past year was 68 ticks. It was 65 in September. That was pretty big, but it was only 23 last month. I'm a lunatic in the sense that I'm willing to try anything, especially with a prop account. I'm not willing to try anything in my cash account because I'm much, much more careful in my cash account than I would be in my prop account. But let's be honest, this is a trade we never traded before. I'm not going to use my best prop account to trade this. I'm going to use one of my more testing oriented accounts, but I'm willing to trade this. Okay. If you all want to trade it, maybe, you know, if you press the trigger, you take your own responsibility. We're not responsible if you take the trade. But if you want to reduce your risk, you could use micros, okay? And that reduces your risk significantly if you use micros. So I'll explain what I'm going to do. Choose the trap trade. Position size 1 is a 1, position size 2 is a 1. The time of the event, the activation is 13:59:55. 5 seconds before the FOMC makes their announcement, my orders will show up on the chart. My stop is 25 ticks. My tier 1 is 30, okay? My tier 2 is 45. I just want to look at some. Yeah, and I want to tell everybody that I did shrink this a little bit. I did shrink this a little bit, okay? Chantal, our other tester, and some people do what she does because they don't like me as a trader. I never said I was the world's best trader. I said I was the world's best teacher. Chantal is using 35 and 50 on her tiers. I'm being more aggressive. Okay? I'm using 30 and 45, but Chantal's using a stop of 20. I'm using a stop of 25. Our zone of safety is the same. So you could use my setup and risk a little more money. But what we're seeing this week is the market moves have been smaller than we've been expecting on almost all of our big trades. So I'm not expecting that big of a move here. What do you think of that? That's what I think. All right. I'm going to trade this using tiers of 30 and 45. And I'd almost rather use 25 and 45, but that's a little bit too big between the pieces, between the tiers. It's too much. But that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go over the trade again. Trap trade. And look at how few things I really have to manipulate to set up a trap trade. Very little. I've got to make sure position size one is a one. That means I'm going to trade one contract on position one. And I make sure the position two is a one. That means I have one contract for each tier, one contract for each order. It's not complicated. I'm going to activate my orders. I'm going to put them on the chart at 13:59:55, 5 seconds before 2 o'clock Eastern time. The time that you should put in is your local time for the top of the hour. If you're in California, you should not be using 13:59:55. You should be using 3 hours earlier than that, right? Because you're in California and I'm on the East Coast. Use your local time, 5 seconds before the news. My stop is 25. My tier one is 30. My tier two is 45. I labeled the trade ES trap. I'll show you why. I scroll down, I apply it, and I okay it. I make sure that my chart is on the same account that I told the software to trade on, and that was my account number 4. And now I just enable my trade. I turn it on. If I turn on my trade, I get the icon. That icon shows me that our software is active and my trade is ready to go. This is the chart I'm trading the trap trade on. This chart has a magnet trade. If the magnet went all the way down low, it would also put me in low because I'm allowing it to go in either direction. Personally, I'd rather trade the NQ breakout, to tell you the truth, just to see if it works. I think our NQ breakout is due for a winner. It's had 3 losers in a row. I think there's a real chance that that could be a winning trade. But it's had the NQ, like I said, it's had 3 losers in a row. Now, if people want to stick around, we have another trade after about 20 minutes after the news. We have a YM range trade right before the news conference. And honestly, I was planning on sticking around for that to see how that's working because that trade has been difficult and I want to see how it's working. So I'm going to stick around. I'm sure probably everybody will stick around. So we do have another trade, but it doesn't start until 20 minutes after the news. And if you scroll down on the DMM, everybody who's a member, you'll see the trade. Okay? For now, We're going to see if our ES trap trade has an average on the year of 45 ticks of movement. Our zone of safety, is, what do we say? 30 and 45, it's 60. All right. Our zone of safety is 60. Well in the margin of safety. Now, Arthur, just make sure you're understanding the fact that the whole idea of the trap trade is price is going to go up and down like crazy on this report. That's what it almost always does on Fed reports. So a trap trade is actually a really good option for a Fed report. All right. Douglas is saying, talking about the consensus. We care about the consensus, but not that much. And the reason I say not that much,
We are now 10 minutes away from the
because
top of the hour.
you
Let's
don't
look
know
at the
what they're going to
FOMC
do.
rate
You
decision.
can think about
So
what
median
they're going to
forecast is a
do.
25
You can
basis point
talk
cut
about
down
what
to
they're going
four
to
spot
do.
5% from
All
four
we
spot
care
seven five
about
percent.
is,
With this, we
will
get
it
the
move the
FOMC rate
market?
statement and the summary
If
of
it has
economic
a
projections, which
consensus,
has the median
if
rate
it doesn't,
expectations.
the only
So Fed
thing we
median
might
rate
get from the
expectations for next year,
consensus
median forecast
is maybe a hint
3.625%
of
from
how
current
much movement there might
3.375%.
be,
For the next 2
but we
years,
don't
the
even know
forecast
that
is
to be true.
3.125%
So I
from the prior
don't get too
2.875%.
involved or
Next 3
worried
years, forecast
about what
3.125%
quote
from the prior
unquote they are
2.875%.
saying.
Long run
Okay.
forecast is
I'm
3%
more
from the prior
interested in,
2.875%.
did our testing work?
So
Is
looking at
our
a preview from
testing
Wells Fargo here, we note
making
that
sense?
fears about a US
Okay.
recession this year were unfounded. Real
That's what we
GDP
want to know.
appears to have expanded at a roughly
But Douglas,
2.4%
don't get
annual
me the
pace on
wrong
a
way.
Q4
We
basis,
always
even as the labor
appreciate
market has
when
cooled off,
people bring
as
in
evidenced by the rise
the
in the
news
unemployment
they're
rate from
looking at, the
3.7% in
consensus
November of
they're
last
thinking
year to
about.
4.2% in
All of
November
that
of this
helps
year.
us very much.
Headline and core
So
PCE
thank you
inflation
for that.
slowed further over the past year. The former fell from 3% to
I think it's
2.3%,
pretty
while the
definite
latter from
that
3.4%
these
to
Fed
2.8%.
people, whatever they
So
are,
Wells Fargo note that
they're
the
going to reduce
FOMC
the rate
refrained
by
from cutting the
25
federal funds
basis
rate for
points.
most of the year, but starting in
Otherwise, the
September,
market's going
the
to go
committee
into a
initiated the
shock.
easing cycle with a
And
50
I
basis
don't think
point
they
cut.
want to shock the
The
market
FOMC
at
followed that with
Christmas,
a 25
right?
basis point reduction in the Fed funds rate in November, and this coming
Oh,
meeting seems likely
so
to result in
see,
another
that's
25
where I
basis
don't
point
know if
move.
I agree,
Beyond the
Doug.
rate
I don't know
cuts,
if I
the Federal Reserve has
agree
also reduced the size of
that
its balance sheet by roughly
that a breakout
$845 billion
or a
over the past
trap
12 months through its quantitative tightening
is
program.
very related
Against
to
this
the
backdrop,
consensus.
that Wells
That's
Fargo
not what
asked,
we
what have US
see.
interest rates
Very
done? At the
honestly,
very
what we
front end, the yield
see
curve,
is
the yields have
just a
fallen in
tremendous
line with
amount
the
of
decline in
movement
the
in
federal
all
funds rate that has
directions
occurred.
on Fed
However, further
statements.
out of
That's
the curve,
generally what
yields
we
have
see.
risen this year
That
despite the
seems to be the
FOMC's rate
reality.
cuts. This
But
fact serves as a sharp reminder
but
that
you
policy
don't
rate
know for
cuts do not
sure. Today
necessarily
it could be
result
a
in
move
lower
in one
long-term
direction,
interest
no
rates.
reversal,
So the Federal
and that
Reserve's
would
Q
kill
key may
our
have played a
trap
small
trade.
role in the higher long-term
So
interest
that
rates, but
happens
we
too.
suspect other
Look,
factors are playing a
what
bigger
I
role.
don't, what
Wells
I
Fargo
think
say
I
the
don't
prospects
want
of
to
a hard
see.
landing for the US
I'm
economy
not
have
so
declined
sure I
relative
want
to
to
1
see
year
it
ago,
test to
and
that
it appears
high.
increasingly
See, I
likely that
could
structural
test my
factors such
brackets.
as
I
faster
could
productivity
see
growth and higher
where
public
my
debt are
brackets are
putting
going to
upward
be
pressure on R
placed
star
by
and by
setting my
extension the
time
longer
to
term
zero.
yields. So Wells
Okay.
Fargo now looking ahead to next year.
And
They
it could sort
expect
of tell
this
me
FOMC
if
meeting
I
to
might be
include
in
signals
trouble
from policymakers that
or
the
if I
pace
have
of
to be
rate cuts will be
careful.
slowing going into next year. Wells Fargo
Here's where
predicts
my
three
brackets are
25
going
Order
to
basis point
be.
submitted.
cuts from the
I
FOMC
think
next
we're
year,
sitting
and
pretty
financial
good.
markets are priced for a similar
If we
outcome,
get
currently seeing around
along,
2, though, as
the
closer to
market's
2
going
than
to
3
have
at
to
least.
go a lot
So these rate cuts
above
may put some additional
the
downward
high
pressure
of
on
the day to
short-term rates,
stop us
similar to
out.
what occurred this year, but we do not anticipate a major decline in longer-term
All
interest
right. But
rates.
I think, I'm not sure today. I'm just trying to think what direction I'd rather be filled.
Order
I'm
canceled.
not so sure, to be honest.
Order canceled.
I'm not that sure what direction I would rather be filled today. A lot of times I know the market's somewhat bullish, but it's not heavily bullish at the moment. In fact, it's in a range. You can see the high and the low, both of them I think it's clear the market is waiting for this news. I think that much we can agree on. And I think on a trap trade with FOMC, I would probably be inclined to take a fast profit if I get it. I'd probably be inclined to take a fast profit. Now, just out of curiosity, who's actually out there? Who's actually trading? Who's trading something? Anybody? And what are you trading? So I've got a magnet going. I'd love to have a NQ trade going, but it's just too much at one time. You know what I mean? NQ 0325. We had a bracket of 40, right? It was a breakout. It was 1359, 59.
5 minutes
A
away now to
bracket
the
of
top of the hour, where
40.
we see the release of the US interest rate decision.
Two
Median
positions.
forecasts see
I'd
a 25
probably
basis point
shrink
cut
them
down to
and I would
4.5%
do
from
20
4.75%. With this,
and
of course, we get the
40
FOMC
on
rate
my
statement, but this
targets.
time we also get the
I
summary
would
of economic projections, which
use my
contains the
target
Fed's
one
median
stop
rate
move to break
expectations.
even.
Median
If
rate
my first
expectations
target
for
gets hit,
next year from
I'd move my
FOMC officials
stop to
are
break even.
forecast at
We had a 40 tick
3.625% from
stop, and I would label
3.375%.
this
Over the next 2 years, median forecast is for
NQ
3.125% from
NQ breakout.
2.875%. Next
Okay.
3 years,
The
forecast
real issue
3.125%
is
on
I
from
can't, I'm not going
2.875%.
to try and
Long run
handle
seen at 3% from the prior
three
2.875%.
live money trades. That would be irresponsible. Okay.
So looking at a preview from Deutsche Bank here, they expect the Fed to cut
But I'm going
rates
to
again by
set my
25 basis
time to
points at this coming
0
meeting, completing the 100 basis
so I
point
could just
recalibration
manage the
indicated in the
bracket
September dot plot.
eventually on this NQ trade.
Deutsche Bank
But
add
it
that,
is a
however,
sim
the
trade
meeting
on the
statement, summary of
NQ,
economic projections, and
honestly.
Chair Powell's press conference will likely
Order
send a
submitted.
consistent signal that the Fed is set to slow the pace of rate
There's my
cuts next
NQ
year.
trade.
In addition to the rate cuts,
Order
they expect a
canceled.
5 basis point downward adjustment to the overnight reverse repo rate, which would realign it with historical positions at the bottom of its target range. The SEP will show meaningful revisions to the 2024 economic forecasts, with growth
And
and
I'm just going
inflation
to put the
revised higher
time
and the
back
unemployment rate revised lower.
to
These revisions will generate
1359,
questions about why the Fed
59,
decided
and
to
I'm
cut
not even going to
rates.
pay attention
Next
to
year,
the
the median dot
NQ
is
because it's
likely to
in
show 3
stim.
additional rate
Okay.
cuts, though we expect the skew to be
That's a sim
toward
trade.
less easing. Finally, the long run dot will likely
But
continue
it
its
will
upward
be part
migration,
of our
rising to around
recording. Okay.
3.1%, which is the
It'll be part of our
median
recording.
expectations looking
So
for
we'll be able to
3%.
analyze it.
So upgrades to neutral should persist as our own
Sander,
estimates remain materially higher.
MES. Okay, Walter,
Deutsche Bank also
ES or
notes that in Powell's
MES.
press conference, it is likely to emphasize that with policy still restrictive, the committee believed it could
So
modestly dial
Douglas,
back
we
the
don't
degree of restraint.
currently have the
But with a
US
strong
dollar
economy, diminished
futures.
downside risks
I
to the labor
think
market,
it would be
and
very
evidence that
enjoyable
inflation
to
is stickier
trade
than
the US dollar
anticipated, the Fed
futures.
will not be in a rush to get to a highly uncertain neutral level.
If that's what
So
you're
Deutsche Bank's
asking me,
baseline
I'm not
remains
sure
that
what
a
you're asking
skip
me.
in early 2025 could turn into an extended
All
pause,
right,
with the
let's
Fed having
watch
limited scope for additional
and see
easing
what
next
happens
year.
on this trap trade. The US dollar futures are absolutely tradable. Many, many different instruments would be tradable on this event. Gold, bonds, uh, dollar futures, euro futures. Many, many, many instruments are tradable on this type of news. Now, I don't have to remind everybody, this is ultra, ultra risk, okay? When the brokers raise margins, you're dealing with ultra, ultra risk. So it's definitely not a trade you have to take. Please keep that in mind. This is one that, if you press to click the button, you agree to take the results. 6E would be the euro futures. We're trading ES. That's S&P futures. MES would be the micro version of the
1 minute
ES
remaining. I'll be leading
futures.
with the US interest rate decision.
YM, MYM would be the micro. NQ, MNQ would be the micro. Nothing might happen on this trade. There may be a very small result. It's possible. There could be no fill, right? All right. Orders are going to show up on our trap trade and our breakout.
10 seconds.
Remember,
Order submitted.
trap trade. Now I see my orders. A trap
Order
trade is an
submitted.
opposite
Order
direction
order
Cut 25
canceled.
basis points, cut 25 basis
I
point
need
cut at
it
4 spot 5%
to
as expected.
reverse.
Fed median rate forecast for next year 3.875%,
I need it to reverse. It
3.875%, Ireland
almost
forecast
stopped us out.
3.625%.
It
For
was
the
Order filled.
next 2 years 3.375%, 3.375%, Ireland forecast 3.125%. For the next 3 years, 3.125%,
okay, I'm trying to stay in this trade,
3.125% as
folks.
expected. Long
Order
run at 3%,
canceled.
3%
All
as
right, I got
expected.
out with
So
a
looking to the market
$300
reactions here,
profit.
dollar seeing some strength, S&P seeing some weakness,
I
Order
got
yield
out
seeing a bit
canceled.
of
with a
whipsaw and
$300
strength overall
profit.
coming through here.
Not a bad trade, folks. Our NQ.
So looking to the release
I
of the statements
accidentally
here then. So
traded
Fed projections
60
show 1 of 19
contracts
officials see no cuts in
in
2025.
SIM.
3 see 1
I'm
cut
up
and
about
10 see 2 cuts. 3
$30,000.
see 3 cuts and
If
1
you,
sees
if you
4
had $1
cuts.
million
1 seeing
account,
5 cuts. But again,
okay,
19 officials seeing
short
no
and
cuts
sweet, the
next year from
NQ
the
was
Fed.
a winning trade.
Policymakers see a
Order
But I'm not going
4%
to be
filled.
unemployment
foolish
rate at the
and
end of
look at
2025
a
from
60
4.4% in
contract
the
trade.
September projections.
You want to
They
get
see the end
out.
of
You wanted to get
2025
out of your
PCE
trade
inflation at
fast. When
2.5%
you
from
get a move
2.1%, core
that
seen at
explodes
2.5%
so
from
much
2.2%,
in
upward
one
revisions to
direction,
inflation there.
you want to
Fed
get the heck
policymakers see
out of that
2.1%
trade with a
GDP growth
profit,
in 2025
okay?
from 2% in September. Longer
Because
run growth at
look what's going
1.8%
on here.
unchanged.
I
See an
don't
upward
know that
revision on near-term growth from Fed
my
policymakers
MES
as
is going to
well.
do a magnet
The
trade
Fed
to the
Order
statement didn't
short
submitted.
change from
side.
November meeting, however.
It's
Descriptions
taking a
of the economy
magnet to the
growing at a
short
solid
side.
pace are
It might not
identical.
work.
The Fed
It
lowers
might
the
not
reverse
work.
repo rate by 30 basis points to
If it tests the
4.25% versus
low,
the
it'll
25 basis
work.
point cut made to the Fed funds rate.
I'd
For the
like
Fed note, they're
a bigger
considering the extent
stop.
and timing of additional rate adjustments. The Fed
I'm
will
not
assess
happy
incoming
that it's
data,
just
evolving
one
outlook,
huge
and balance
candle.
risks.
It's one huge candle. So
So
I'm not
Fed
real
vote in favor
thrilled
of the cut was
with
11
my
to
Mac
1. Cleveland Fed President
because
Hammack dissented, preferring
I'm
to leave
not
the
sure
policy
we're
rate
going to get a
unchanged at
follow
this
through.
meeting.
I'm not sure.
So the FOMC, again, median forecast shows 50 basis points of rate cuts in 2025 to around 3.9%. FOMC
Not
median
sure.
2025 inflation forecast, again, 2.5%
I don't
from
think I don't think we
2.1%.
will. I don't think we will. So I'll lose a little bit of money in one of my prop accounts, but I made 300 in our main on our main trade. I think the short is just not going to hold because I think the markets ultimately looks like they have changed their mind and they now like this news. So I'll leave it where it is. I'll leave it where it is. There's a lot of change in direction. There is a lot of change in direction. So I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a chance.
So US rate futures price in more than 90% chance the
Who
Fed will
traded
hold
out
rates
there?
at the
Who
January
traded
meeting.
out there and made some money? Who made some money? Anybody? I mean, if you traded the NQ, Fred made some money on the MES. Very good. On the trap trade, Fred? On the trap trade? Or did you do a breakout? Oh, good, good, good. Now, the trap, you had to be fast, folks. You had to get out fast. Todd, what did you get whipped on? What did you get whipped on? Now, I was not watching what did you use as your tiers? What did you use as your tiers? Well, folks, it goes to show that MES may have moved differently than the ES. That's entirely possible, entirely possible. And that's one of the issues we deal with all the time with micros. We don't always get the exact same move. We don't always get the exact same move. Now, we still have that YM trade that we've done some testing on. I'm still watching this magnet trade. It's kind of hard to do a magnet trade on FOMC. Maybe it wasn't the smartest, in all honesty, just sitting here thinking, even though right now it's it's going towards the way I want it to go, um, it may not be the best type of event for a magnet. That's being honest. That's being
The
honest.
US rate futures price in just 2 rate cuts for next year after the Fed eased by
Now,
25
I'd
basis
love to
points.
see it get me into a profit. I'm probably going to shrink my stop to below the 6 p.m. open. And if I can get out, I think it's going to test the low now. I think now it should test the low. It should test it. I could bring my order right up to it.
Order filled.
I didn't do anything. It did the magnet, all right? It was a little bit tricky, almost stopped us out. Again, gotta use good size stops on your magnets. Gotta use good size stops on your magnets. Author, there's also a long and a short button. Also a long and a short button. So that you could make sure it only goes in one direction. Douglas, my experience has been the 6E follows the dollar, right? Is that what you're saying? The magnet executes, the magnet executes, right. Yeah, the euro US dollar is what I would expect. But I got to be honest, it's something we currently have not looked at all. And it's only because the dollar futures are so expensive to trade. Most people don't want to spend the money. So we don't want to force people to do it. I would like to trade the dollar futures. And if we look briefly at TradingView, I'll show you. You can see they're great because you can see the dollar futures ICE. So the move was down
The
also
dollar rising to the highest since November of
at
2022
the
following
time
the
of the
decision
news.
and
Now,
release of the
what's
SEP.
interesting is I think something happened to my trading view charts. They're not working the way they used to. So they seem to be delayed when they didn't used to be. So right now they're delayed. They're delayed. So I'll have to look later. Have to look later. But just to recap, my trap trade got us 300 profit. Now, did anybody trade the NQ breakout? I'm not seeing a single note about anybody trading the NQ breakout. Sim, yes. I guess I'm meaning live. It looked like a great trade. I do want to thank everybody that's watching us on YouTube. We're going to close our YouTube stream now. So thanks everybody on YouTube. Members in the room, stay in the room because we have something else to do. That might be interesting. But everybody on YouTube, thank you so much. I hope you all have a great weekend. This is our last stream of the week, but I hope you enjoyed. We made money on the FOMC. Our magnet worked and our trap trade worked. So thanks for joining with